NASCAR, what were you thinking? Well, I guess it worked out for you, but man, lot to talk about. All right, so I think we should just jump to the end of the race, and I'll go back and talk about the one other major note from the race. But oh boy, yeah, Stenhouse tagged the wall with a quarter of a lap to go, and they ended up throwing the yellow with what was it, like 100 feet to go for Blaney to take the checkers. Blaney and his team thought they'd won it. Yeah, Blaney starts taking down the window net, celebrating, getting ready to do burnouts, and it's like, race ain't over yet, bud. Now, this was a weird rule that they've had in place for the All Star race for at least like 3 or 4 years at minimum, where the All Star race must end under green. I don't remember exactly when this was added to the All Star rulebook, but it's a rule for just the All Star race. So the yellow coming out with like 100 feet to go and us doing two more laps. I mean, especially when looking back at the wreck, it was slight wall contact for Stenhouse. You could have waited. It's not like it would have been an immediate danger threat for any drivers, unlike other incidents where NASCAR's withheld the yellow flag to let the race end. And really, it felt a little bit like NASCAR was trying to find a way to spice up this race and potentially not necessarily work specifically against Blaney, but trying to just spice up the race. And ultimately, because Blaney was leading by a decent margin, almost knocked him out of it. And then you had the restart. Hamlin was on two fresher tires, but his tires had pretty much equalized with the field. And then you have problem number two, which was the window net. I haven't seen a great replay that shows yes or no the window net coming down after they take the green flag. I think the proper response there, when you had Blaney taking down the window net before the race was over, when he thought the race was over, because 100 feet or so, and the driver can't necessarily see that, and team not relaying the information to him quick enough, because I think they thought they'd won it too. He took the window net down thinking it was the end of the race, because that's how you do it with the end of the race. And how I would have handled that as if I were NASCAR's position is treat it like a transponder issue, because it is a safety issue which cannot be resolved, which you really can't race without it being resolved. Bring him down pit road, have either one of Blaney's guys, or if you don't trust them, send a NASCAR official to strap that window net up, secure it, no other service, and let him have his spot back. That way you aren't penalizing someone for a misunderstanding of the rule and not seeing the yellow, especially when it's that late. But ultimately they made Blaney have to reattach it from inside the car, and if you've ever been inside of a NASCAR car, those things are heavily restrictive with how you can look around inside of it, especially with your Hans device still attached. So yeah, there was very little Blaney could do to help tighten it. Ultimately, I think he got it looking good, at least for the restart, but a few different people that I know that were at the track said that yes, the window net did come back down. No, the window net didn't come back down. Regardless, I think, again, it probably should have been an issue that NASCAR let him fix and then come back out on the track, because it wasn't something that was done by intention. It wasn't like damage on a caution flag. It's a window net for the driver's safety. So ultimately, that's what I think probably should have been done in that case. But then you had, so ultimately, I think if the window net did come back down, I think there's a chance of a small fine maybe for the team or the driver himself. Honestly, I would hate to see that for Blaney because honestly, I think he did the best job he could considering the circumstances. But I certainly don't think it's worth erasing the entire win. So, Ryan Blaney is your All Star Race winner, at least for tonight. We'll see again if there's any penalty from that. I highly doubt it. So, Ryan Blaney's your All Star Race winner. He doesn't have a points paying win yet this year, but $1 million never hurt anybody, right? So, yeah, Blaney goes on to win the million. Denny Hamlin ends up finishing second. I think Cindric ended up with a third place finish, but really because of no points, it doesn't really matter anything outside of who won it. Yeah, Cindric and Logano end up third and fourth, but so the one other kind of major incident that we had throughout the race was we had Kyle Busch blowing a left rear tire coming down the track, letting Cindric go through underneath him, then continuing to come down the track, trying to get to the apron, and I guess Chastain, his spotter was looking at the 12 or something, so the spotter said that he didn't even see the 18, which is I would say puts the blame on the one car spotter. Kyle's just trying to get down and to the apron as quick as possible, and he was 100 feet from achieving his goal of getting to the apron and out the way with a flat tire. Not to mention, not much control you can have with a flat tire. But ultimately, Chastain ends up slamming into the back of Kyle Busch with the flat tire as he came across the track. Again, I think he was just trying to get to the apron to get out of harm's way and even saw Cindric coming and tried to let him through. But ultimately, when Chastain hit him, nearly flipped Chastain right over, came back up, hit Elliott. Luckily, all three of them escaped without any injury, and honestly, those cars looked repairable for Charlotte in a few days. So, yeah, that was really the only major crash contact wise. But now we got the long-term issue of what to do about the All-Star race, because as of right now, with 24 drivers making the All-Star race, I mean, with 36 charters, 24 people in the All-Star race is too many to consider them all All-Stars. Even though with the All-Star format this year, it did mean that my guy Stenhouse managed to make it into the field and ultimately was what brought out the final yellow, yeah, honestly, I think the All-Star race should be reserved for the champions of the series, recent All-Star winners from say the last 5 to 10 years, and then your race winners through the first however many races till the All-Star race. Now, with a year like this year, sure, that could be a lot of drivers. But if we went by that logic, just the first half of this year. So if you so that would be Chastain would get in despite not being a champion or an all-star. Cindric would get in. You'd still have a chance of a rookie getting in, but it also would mean that you'd have like 15 drivers in and not 30. So ultimately, I think that would be a way to try and make it more exclusive. Second thing I would change would probably be by far, I would say probably the venue would be the next thing up. So I know NASCAR's in a little bit of a pinch right now with the venue because the reason we're at Texas Motor Speedway is to appease Texas Motor Speedway and SMI so that we can go to COTA in the spring instead of a 500-mile race at Texas. But honestly, I think at this point it should be pretty much to the point where NASCAR is like, okay, bulldoze and repave that, like fix the track since you didn't do a good job the first time, or just take away at least one of Texas's dates. And honestly, I'd probably take the second one and put it in the regular season. Maybe give Richmond their playoff date back, but that's personal opinion. What you put back in there doesn't really matter, but Yeah, Texas at this point pretty much needs to either be turned into a short track or at the very least, bulldoze the pavement and re lay down some new pavement so that you don't have, because apparently like the PJ1 that they sprayed down like 4 years ago, like 3 or 4 years ago, is now corroding away the asphalt or something and making it so that it's less grip until you get an extreme amount of heat, which makes night racing impossible. So, now it only seems to have affected really this track in particular. Now, granted, the flattened turn one has not produced great racing, regardless of the, whether the PJ1 was down there or not. But yeah, so we've seen consistent issues with the PJ1. We've seen consistent issues with turn one being so wide, but if you miss the bottom of the racetrack by 2-3 feet, you hit the wall almost guaranteed. So I would say that it might be time for an ultimatum with NASCAR in Texas. Now, long-term solution would be maybe take Texas off the schedule for a couple of years, put another SMI track on there, maybe give Bristol a another concrete date, though that might be hard to fit that in with the where Texas's dates are currently, unless you made Bristol the All Star Race, which concrete Bristol not exactly ideal for the All Star Race either, as we saw in 2020. Honestly, I personally like the idea of the All Star Race at Charlotte because of the kind of 2 weeks at home for the drivers, and for people who want to take a vacation to the All Star Race, they can stay the extra weekend and see the Coke 600 as well. And you can kind of plan your trip around going and seeing both. And in the week, you can go and check out the race shops and or the NASCAR Hall of Fame if you want. So, yeah, I like it being at Charlotte just makes the most sense. If you're not going to put it at Charlotte, I would say rotate the track around to a bunch of tracks. So like, with where it is in the schedule, you can pretty much put it at any track. Because of the fact that you've got fairly decent weather most places around the U.S. So I would say maybe rotate it around to a bunch of different tracks, swapping their point state with it. So like maybe Nashville Superspeedway one year gets the All Star Race and loses their point state for some other track, maybe North Wilkesboro in the future, or Nashville Fairgrounds. But that being a way to start rotating in and out some tracks. But ultimately, a lot of that is many, many, many years down the road in terms of actually getting some of those things done. And who knows? NASCAR probably won't see this video. Probably won't hear me, and yeah, so probably we'll just stick with Texas as the All Star Race to appease SMI. But yeah, so right now the two biggest problems with the All Star Race: the field, where it doesn't feel special anymore, and the venue. Now, the idea of this whole like the whole drag race pit lane, I'd like to see it maybe tweaked, like maybe make it where the pit stop it happens right at the end of right at the entrance to pit road, and then you drag race all the way down the pit lane at full speed. Although again, that might be a safety hazard with the pit lane. Or even just kind of give it another year as is at, again, hopefully a better track, and see if it improves, because again, we've only seen 1 year of it. Honestly, for me, it was actually kind of fun to just sit down. Personally, I think, again, it works better if you have more cars involved in it, because that kind of tournament bracket, when you only have 8 cars, doesn't leave leaves a lot to be desired. So I think that's kind of the one thing, is that kind of format benefits from more cars in the All Star Race. So maybe putting it up to the top 16, All Star contenders. But yeah, so again, the main two problems are the field size and the venue. In terms of the All Star Race problems, and then I would say once you've picked a better track, maybe Charlotte, you can then look to addressing the All Star format with like the excessive cautions and stuff. But I think a lot of that, honestly, can be played around with after we fix the track, like reschedule the track and adjust how many drivers get in. So yeah. So in terms of the All Star Race this year, not a whole lot to say except for NASCAR nearly killed Blaney's chance at the million. And honestly, if he hadn't won that, I would be perfectly okay with Blaney going and being extremely vocal about to NASCAR about how their rulings pretty well would have lost him that because of the late yellow, and especially if he ended up having to pit to get that window net fixed, and lost his spots because of it. I think both of those would have been very major concerns. But luckily we got the outcome, which meant Ryan Blaney is still your All Star Race winner. And then just kind of the whole Kyle Busch thing. It was a wreck early in the All Star Race, tire down. Not much you can really do about that. Again, one car spotter was at fault there. It was a meh race. I mean, again, not great, but I don't hold it against the drivers. I think the drivers were doing a great job of driving. And then again, kind of just a slight side note to end off this video is the tires seem to be having a bit of trouble. We saw it at Kansas last week. I mentioned it it was a main talking point in my video. Probably didn't need to be, but lo and behold, we had similar problems this week where after about 25 to 40 laps on your tires, it was essentially Russian roulette of would your tire go down. Happened to Larson, happened to Kyle Busch, happened to Eric Jones. So it's like, okay, there was 3 cars at 3 different levels, all at around or less than 40 laps on their tires, and they lost the tires. So again, I think there's something that needs to be looked at with the tires, whether it's Goodyear checking the tire pressures again, because somebody said that maybe it was the tire pressures that they got from Goodyear not being good enough, like they were the wrong numbers. It could be on the teams for running the air pressures too low, or it could be on Goodyear for not having the tire quite ready compared to the new wheel. But whatever the problem is, I would hope that NASCAR is at least talking with Goodyear and the race teams about this, because especially as we go through the summer, we're going to have a lot of really warm, slick tracks. I mean, again, Atlanta is going to be really hot in July. New Hampshire's got some pretty old pavement and will be warm in July, so a lot of races that could end up being really warm and have major tire issues coming down the line. So, but yeah, that's most everything I want to talk about in this video. Looking forward to the Charlotte All Star, or not Charlotte All Star, it's the Charlotte 600 next weekend for Memorial Day weekend. Also, Indy 500. I'm gonna be watching that. Might give a brief update on the Indy 500. Congrats to Scott Dixon on the pole. Don't go to Taco Bell. But hopefully you guys all enjoyed, and I will see you guys next video, live stream, or whatever you guys decide to do with the rest of your day. Have a great day, everybody, and goodbye!